Welcome to Indonesia Security Focus, your monthly deep dive into the archipelago's evolving security landscape. I'm your host, and today we're examining May 2025, a pivotal month that showcased Indonesia's diplomatic prowess on the regional stage while navigating increasingly complex bilateral relationships. May was defined by Indonesia's commanding presence at the 22nd Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore, where Defense Minister Prabowo Subianto positioned Indonesia as a crucial mediator amid escalating Asia-Pacific tensions. The month also witnessed significant bilateral engagements with Australia and France, raising critical questions about Indonesia's strategic autonomy and the future of its defense partnerships. Meanwhile, we observed continued domestic security stability, alongside evolving regional threat dynamics. Today, we'll explore how Indonesia leveraged Asia's premier defense summit to advance its strategic interests, examine the security implications of deepening ties with Australia and France, and assess what these developments mean for Indonesia's cherished, free, and active foreign policy doctrine. May 2025 presented Indonesia with a multifaceted security environment characterized by intensifying great power competition and the delicate challenge of maintaining strategic autonomy while deepening defense partnerships. The month's overarching theme was Indonesia's emergence as a regional diplomatic heavyweight, skillfully using the Shangri-La Dialogue to champion ASEAN centrality and peaceful dispute resolution. The regional security atmosphere was marked by heightened tensions in the South China Sea, where heated exchanges between China and the Philippines underscored the ever-present risk of miscalculation. Indonesia found itself navigating the precarious position of maintaining constructive relationships with all major powers while steadfastly avoiding entanglement in their rivalries. On the domestic front, the security environment remained remarkably stable, though concerns persisted about the expanding military role in civilian governance through recent amendments to the TNI law. That's the Tentara Nasional Indonesia law. The month passed without major terrorist incidents, reflecting Indonesia's continued success in counterterrorism efforts and the effectiveness of its de-radicalization programs. Most significantly, Indonesia's bilateral defense engagements with Australia and France sparked important debates about the delicate balance between capability enhancement and strategic independence, particularly given historical sensitivities and Indonesia's unwavering commitment to non-alignment principles. Indonesia's terrorism threat profile remained encouraging throughout May, with the country maintaining its improved standing in the 2025 Global Terrorism Index. No terrorist attacks occurred, extending a remarkable two-year streak that reflects the effectiveness of BNPT efforts. That's the National Counterterrorism Agency, and the successful dismantling of extremist networks across the archipelago. However, regional maritime security concerns intensified dramatically, particularly in the South China Sea, where territorial disputes showed no signs of resolution. The Shangri-La Dialogue featured sharp, sometimes acrimonious exchanges between claimant states, with China firmly rejecting what it characterized as groundless accusations, while vigorously defending its territorial sovereignty claims. Cybersecurity remained a persistent and evolving vulnerability, with experts predicting continued growth in threat sophistication throughout 2025. Indonesia's rapid digital transformation, while tremendously beneficial for economic development, has inadvertently created new attack vectors that malicious state and non-state actors are actively exploiting. The month witnessed no significant domestic civil unrest, though underlying tensions related to recent military reforms continued to simmer beneath the surface. Maritime security challenges persisted, with ongoing reports of illegal fishing activities and minor piracy attempts in Indonesian waters, issues that were directly addressed during bilateral meetings on the dialogue's sidelines. A particularly concerning development was China's notable absence at the ministerial level from the Shangri-La Dialogue for the first time since 2019, instead dispatching lower-level officials from the PLA National Defense University. That's the People's Liberation Army National Defense University. This diplomatic signal reflected Beijing's growing dissatisfaction with current regional dynamics and could significantly complicate future multilateral security cooperation efforts. The Indonesian government's response to May's security challenges was primarily diplomatic, with the Shangri-La Dialogue serving as the strategic centerpiece of Indonesia's regional engagement strategy. Defense Minister Prabowo Subianto's active and visible participation demonstrated Indonesia's unwavering commitment to multilateral security cooperation, while simultaneously advancing crucial bilateral defense relationships. A particularly significant development was the substantial deepening of defense ties with both Australia and France through high-level visits and comprehensive agreements. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's visit to Jakarta in mid-May resulted in concrete commitments to expand the landmark defense cooperation agreement signed in 2024, with enhanced focus on maritime security, counterterrorism capabilities, and humanitarian assistance operations. The visit by French President Emmanuel Macron yielded even more substantial and far-reaching outcomes, with an impressive 21 strategic agreements signed, including a crucial letter of intent for major defense acquisitions. The agreements encompass the purchase of 42 advanced Rafale fighter jets and sophisticated Scorpion submarines, representing billions of dollars in defense investments and technological transfer. However, these developments have raised important and legitimate questions about Indonesia's long-term strategic autonomy. The expansion of military cooperation with Western partners, while undoubtedly enhancing capabilities, potentially complicates Indonesia's traditional non-aligned stance and could create expectations for alignment in future regional crises, a prospect that makes many Indonesian policymakers uncomfortable. The TNI, that's the Tentara Nasional Indonesia, maintained its routine maritime patrols and comprehensive preparedness exercises, particularly in the strategically vital Natuna Sea, while ensuring operational readiness across all domains. Indonesia's security environment in May was significantly shaped by the intensifying US-China rivalry and persistent maritime tensions that continue to define regional dynamics. The South China Sea remained the primary regional flashpoint, with China's continued assertiveness and large-scale military exercises raising serious concerns about territorial sovereignty and freedom of navigation principles. The Shangri-La Dialogue starkly highlighted these tensions, with China's deliberate decision to send a lower-level delegation signaling diplomatic caution amid mounting accusations of hegemonic bullying from regional and Western partners. This development could substantially complicate Indonesia's carefully crafted efforts to maintain balanced relationships with all major powers. Indonesia's bilateral defense engagements with Australia and France reflected its sophisticated strategy of diversifying security partnerships while maintaining strategic autonomy. However, these relationships come with potential complications that require careful management. Australian-Indonesian defense cooperation, while expanding in scope, remains constrained by historical grievances, particularly regarding the traumatic East Timor crisis and ongoing concerns about Australia's perceived support for Papuan separatist movements. The French partnership, while offering access to advanced military technology and valuable industrial cooperation, raises legitimate questions about dependency and strategic alignment. France's positioning as a third way between US and Chinese influence naturally appeals to Indonesia's deeply held non-aligned principles, but the substantial scale of defense acquisitions could create problematic long-term dependencies. Regional maritime security cooperation gained meaningful momentum, with enhanced joint patrols and improved intelligence sharing to address piracy and transnational crime. However, the long-term effectiveness of these efforts depends critically on sustained political commitment and adequate resource allocation. The 22nd Shangri-La Dialogue represented both an unprecedented opportunity and a significant challenge for Indonesia's strategic positioning in an increasingly polarized Asia-Pacific region. With 47 countries participating, including 40 ministerial-level delegates, the forum provided Indonesia with an invaluable platform to articulate its vision for regional security architecture while skillfully navigating complex bilateral relationships. Indonesia's approach at the dialogue was strategically nuanced and carefully calibrated, emphasizing ASEAN centrality and peaceful dispute resolution while studiously avoiding taking sides in great power competition. This positioning was particularly evident in discussions about the contentious South China Sea, where Indonesia highlighted its own successful maritime delimitation negotiations with China as a practical model for peaceful dispute resolution. However, the security implications of Indonesia's deepening defense partnerships with Australia and France became increasingly apparent during intensive bilateral meetings on the dialogue's sidelines. The Australian relationship, while strategically valuable for regional stability, carries significant historical baggage that complicates deeper cooperation. Some Indonesian defense officials remain understandably wary due to unresolved tensions from the traumatic 1999 East Timor crisis and perceived Australian support for Papuan separatist movements. The French partnership presents distinctly different but equally complex challenges. While offering access to cutting-edge military technology and valuable industrial cooperation, the substantial scale of defense acquisitions, including 42 state-of-the-art Rafale fighter jets and sophisticated Scorpion submarines, raises legitimate questions about strategic dependency. France's careful positioning as an alternative to U.S. or Chinese influence naturally appeals to Indonesia's deeply rooted non-aligned principles, but inevitably creates new forms of technological and industrial dependence. These partnerships also raise fundamental concerns about Indonesia's ability to maintain its traditional, free and active, foreign policy doctrine. As defense cooperation deepens and becomes more institutionalized, partners may naturally expect greater alignment on regional security issues, potentially constraining Indonesia's cherished diplomatic flexibility. The central challenge for Indonesian policymakers is leveraging these relationships to enhance national capabilities while preserving hard-won strategic autonomy. The dialogue also highlighted growing proliferation risks in the region, with Australia's Deputy Prime Minister emphasizing the urgent need for renewed commitment to arms control frameworks. Indonesia's own military modernization program, while absolutely necessary for credible deterrence, inevitably contributes to regional arms competition and requires careful management to avoid triggering dangerous security dilemmas. Several concerning patterns emerged from May's developments that warrant close monitoring and strategic attention. The convergence of intensifying great power competition, accelerating military modernization, and evolving alliance formation creates significant risks of inadvertent entanglement for middle powers like Indonesia. China's diplomatic signaling at the Shangri-La Dialogue, deliberately sending lower-level representation while maintaining confrontational rhetoric, suggests a more selective and calculated engagement approach that could seriously complicate regional crisis management. This pattern indicates potential challenges for Indonesia's traditional bridge-building role between major powers. The expansion of Indonesia's defense partnerships, while undoubtedly enhancing military capabilities, creates new dependencies and expectations that could constrain future policy options. Historical precedents strongly suggest that arms suppliers often expect political alignment, particularly during regional crises when neutrality becomes most valuable. A notably positive pattern is Indonesia's growing diplomatic confidence and enhanced regional leadership role. The country's demonstrated ability to convene meaningful dialogue and advocate effectively for peaceful dispute resolution significantly enhances its soft power and regional influence. However, this leadership role also increases expectations for effective crisis management and conflict resolution. Maritime security trends remain deeply troubling, with persistent territorial disputes and accelerating military buildups, increasing the risk of miscalculation and conflict. The intersection of these tensions with Indonesia's expanding defense partnerships could seriously complicate its traditional neutrality in regional disputes. The technological dimension of security competition is intensifying rapidly, with cyber threats, space capabilities, and artificial intelligence becoming central to military planning. Indonesia's partnerships with advanced technology providers offer significant opportunities, but also create new vulnerabilities and dependencies that require careful management. The security environment in June 2025 is likely to remain complex and challenging, with several key developments requiring close monitoring and strategic attention. Follow-up activities from the Shangri-La Dialogue will test Indonesia's ability to translate diplomatic gains into concrete security outcomes, particularly in maritime domain awareness and crisis management capabilities. The implementation of expanded defense cooperation with Australia and France will be closely watched for signs of political expectations or constraints on Indonesia's strategic autonomy. Parliamentary ratification of these agreements may trigger significant domestic debate about the delicate balance between capability enhancement and independence. Regional tensions in the South China Sea show no signs of abating, with Indonesia likely to face continued pressure to choose sides as great power competition intensifies. The success of Indonesia's non-aligned approach will depend critically on its ability to maintain constructive relationships with all major powers while advancing its own national interests. Risk assessment for the coming month indicates moderate likelihood of continued South China Sea tensions with potentially high regional impact, low to moderate risk of bilateral friction over defense cooperation terms, and moderate cybersecurity threat levels with potentially high national impact. Key monitoring priorities include the implementation of Shangri-La Dialogue commitments, developments in U.S.-China relations and their regional implications, progress on defense cooperation agreements and any associated political expectations, and emerging cyber and technological threats to critical infrastructure. May 2025 demonstrated Indonesia's growing confidence and sophistication as a regional security actor, skillfully leveraging diplomatic forums and bilateral partnerships to advance its strategic interests. However, the month also highlighted the persistent challenges of maintaining strategic autonomy in an increasingly polarized and competitive region. Key takeaways include the critical importance of balancing capability enhancement with independence, the urgent need for careful management of defense partnerships to avoid unwanted dependencies, and the vital role of diplomatic engagement in managing regional tensions and preventing conflict. As we look ahead, two fundamental questions merit serious consideration. Can Indonesia maintain its cherished non-aligned approach as defense partnerships deepen and great power competition intensifies? And how will the country balance the undeniable benefits of advanced military capabilities with the risks of strategic dependence? This has been Indonesia Security Focus. Stay informed, stay secure, and we'll see you next month for our comprehensive June security assessment.